Death. We all experience death. In life we see the deaths of others, and in time we too shall join them. For all the best efforts of our science and medicine, all our industry and genius, death will find us all in time. One day, you and everyone you know and love will die. You know this. You've known this ever since you were little, yet it is somewhat uncomfortable to talk about or to dwell upon. I have covered a number of subjects on this channel, but death is one which I have scarcely alluded to until now. I want to gather my thoughts for you here, as while the subject matter may be uncomfortable, it is also one of the most important subjects I will cover. To speak of death is to speak of life, and I have much to say regarding the matter of life. I trust that my musings on life and death shall be of some interest to you, as I have come to a stance which I do not see many holding, but which I feel may nonetheless find wider understanding and acceptance with time. This video will delve into some uncomfortable subject matter, far more so than is usual on this channel, so viewer discretion is advised. But I likewise advise you not to shy away from these things simply because they are uncomfortable to dwell upon. Sometimes the most uncomfortable thoughts are the ones which are most important and fruitful, as we shall see. Welcome to the Church of the Machine. My mission is to found a new religion. Let us begin. Death is defined as the irreversible cessation of the biological functions which sustain a living organism. More broadly, it is the ending of what once was, and now no longer is. One can speak of the death of a fire, the death of an ambition, the death of a culture, many other such examples. In the broader sense, death is the irreversible cessation of that which is, and thus the begetting of that which must be. All things must come to an end. That is essentially transcribed into the laws of reality itself, and this is therefore true of living things as well. Yet we will never truly accept this reality. I don't think we will, anyway, because we are living beings, and it is unlike us to go gentle into that good night. Some of us do, of course, but those of us who are most lively would never. We will rage against the dying of the light, as the poem goes. There are living beings which do not experience death in the same way as humans do, such as the immortal jellyfish. But for as long as we can recall, there have been those of us who sought to attain this form of immortality for mankind, the promised elixir of eternal youth. This is perhaps the most valuable and sought-after thing in all the universe, in all space and time. Eternity, as valuable and precious as life itself. There are likewise many stories across cultures which tell of warnings regarding immortality. Often these come in the form of attaining eternal life, but in a form which takes away what is most precious about being alive, one's youth and vitality, or one's character and individuality, or one's loved ones. As death is something we've all had to deal with, and something which is often very painful to experience and to dwell upon, we have developed ways of understanding it. Death has come to be regarded as an inevitable and natural part of the cycle of life, and as the beginning of a new life, something to be accepted and to come to terms with. This has likewise gone hand in hand with the belief in things like an immortal soul, or an afterlife of some description. Whether it be paradise or torment or more of the same, the notion of an afterlife is comforting to many people. Yet none can truly know what awaits after one crosses the barrier of life and death. Anyone who claims to is lying to you. They may well hold strong beliefs, but they do not know in any way which could be described as scientific. there is no means to observe what happens to consciousness after death. There is scarcely even a means to observe what happens to it while the body is still alive. The only way to observe this is to cross that irreversible threshold yourself, that event horizon of death, and few of us are in any rush to do that. Thus, no experiment could be conducted that could yield useful or reproducible results, and anything which can be taken as evidence is anecdotal at best. What happens after death can only ever be a matter of belief. I have never died. I have never spoken to anyone who has. I cannot claim to know anyone who has. I can therefore make no concrete claims about what happens after death. There is but one thing which I believe about what happens after death, though, and that is that death is not the end of suffering. Suffering is a constant of life. Death often brings about more of it. It makes no sense to me that death should somehow end that reality. If there be any form of afterlife, I find it unbelievable that it would be one without suffering. No, I believe that suffering continues after death, at least insofar as anything can be said to continue at all. This does not necessarily mean death cannot be peaceful. All lives have suffering, and life can be nonetheless peaceful. But I have long since ceased to believe in paradises and utopias. The most believable afterlife, to me, is that it is simply more of the same. Whether that be through reincarnation, or eternal recurrence, or what have you. That is the afterlife I would deem most believable. Regardless of how one understands death, there are many who still seek to escape it. In the ancient world, this might have taken the form of quests for the fountain of eternal youth, or Chinese potion brewing. But now, with modern science, it takes the form of transhumanism and the pursuit of biological immortality. There has been some amount of research into the biological mechanisms which cause aging, as well as ways of slowing or preventing these mechanisms. We still understand very little about the true processes at work with biological aging, and there are a myriad of them which all seem to be largely independent of one another. DNA damage, genetic instability, free radicals, general wear and tear, and so on are all thought to be factors in the overall process. There are so many things going on that it seems almost impossible to find a solution to all of it, and yet medicine has produced miracles before. So there is widespread hope that perhaps someday, aging will come to be regarded as just another horrible disease we once suffered with and thought normal, but have since eradicated forever. This would, without doubt, be one of the most profound things to ever happen to the human species. I have spoken at some length of transhumanism on this channel, and will likely do so again. In brief, I suppose you could call me a transhumanist, but I have my issues with the wider movement. In particular, I am a little less optimistic about the possibility of radical life extension being achieved within my lifetime. Not necessarily because I have looked into the science and research on it extensively. Indeed, I have friends who study or work in these fields who are more optimistic than I am. But for a number of other reasons. Rather, I simply tend to err on the conservative side with expectations of future technological developments. And, perhaps more importantly, I think perhaps I will live a better life if I do not take my youth and my time for granted. I'd rather believe I will age and be wrong, than believe I will get to live forever and be wrong. But then, it's not really forever, is it? Even if we suppose that biological immortality were achieved tomorrow, and within a few short years became so widespread that natural aging was a thing of the past, people would still die. Planes would still crash, bombs would still explode, hurricanes would still happen. Even a youthful and healthy body will still die if it takes a gunshot to the heart. There are ways of fighting this as well, making the body even stronger, tougher, more durable. Perhaps there would even be ways of backing up one's mind to a computer, or creating an army of duplicates. Yet by one means or another, the Reaper would find them all eventually. Given sufficient time, anything that can happen will happen. And while there are many ways to reduce the probability of death, it can never be reduced to zero. Eventually, it is a simple matter of entropy and the heat death of the universe. All that is must one day not be. This is inevitable. There is no true way to beat death. At least, so we assume. Yet this is not a source of despair for me. There may be no way to overcome death. But overcoming death is not and ought not to be the purpose of our pursuit of radical life extension. Indeed, life extension and death acceptance can go hand in hand. No, the purpose of life extension and the pursuit of biological immortality is not to overcome death, but to overcome aging. And that is a crucial distinction indeed. I do not necessarily want to be saved from death, but I do want to be saved from a meaningless death. I do not want to die of decay. If and when I must die, let it be on a day when I am most full of vigour and vitality, of life and youth, and let me die beautifully. Only then can I die at peace. Most deaths are meaningless, in the same way that most lives are meaningless. Which is to say, they aren't, necessarily, yet it can certainly seem that way. A meaningless life is the greatest crime a human being can commit. All that is precious is life itself, and to waste it is to blaspheme against all reality. A meaningless life will always lead to a meaningless death, but a good death can validate your whole life, even if much of it felt meaningless while you were going through it. In this way, a meaningful death is in some sense the ultimate end of life itself, for the entire quality of a life can be judged by the quality of the death which comes at the end. Nietzsche said, quote, "The thought of suicide is a powerful comfort. It helps one through many a sleepless night." End quote. I think Nietzsche had a point here, and not the point that many would interpret from this passage. Some take the quote as being quite miserable, as if Nietzsche is merely depressed and suicidal here, and perhaps that may be so. Yet I think the point he is making is that it is comforting and helpful to remind oneself that one has power over their own life. Whatever situation you may end up in, you will always have the ultimate power to end it all, and that gives you a kind of freedom which no worldly forces can deprive you of. To remind yourself that you have that power. You are the final authority. This can indeed help you through many struggles and many hardships. Some say that death gives life meaning. I may not agree, but I think that they have a point to make. Ultimately, you are the final authority over your own life, and the thought of suicide can validate that authority. Death, more broadly, can validate your life, as much of life consists of choosing the circumstances under which you will die, whether willingly or otherwise. Is death a prerequisite for a meaningful life? Well, there is no way of attaining life without death, not in accordance with our understanding of the laws of physics, so the question is somewhat meaningless. But if death is a certainty, then one might say that a meaningful death is a prerequisite for a meaningful life, and not the other way around. One might also say that the struggle against death gives life meaning. Most people take decades to die. Indeed, many people die in spirit long before they ever begin to die in body. These zombie-like people go about their monotonous and meaningless lives without any of the zest and vitality which is indicative of a living being. Such people have known death long before they have known life. Such an existence is not worthy of prolonging. It is not even worthy of preserving. This is a life where one has given up the struggle against death, and is simply waiting for it. waiting to die. You have found yourself in the queue at the end of time. No child is born this way. All children are naturally playful, adventurous, energetic, and optimistic. It is not human nature to become a zombie. It is simply that the world wears you down, if you let it, and will drain your life away from you. If you want to fight that, you must embrace the struggle against death. You must not allow yourself to do any of the things that a dead man does. A dead man cannot act spontaneously, so you must act spontaneously. A dead man cannot run until he starts gasping for air, so you must run until you start gasping for air. A dead man cannot make decisions in the face of overwhelming odds, so you must make decisions in the face of overwhelming odds. You must live dangerously, live on the threshold between life and death, for so you live best. I think although death is often a tragic thing, it can nonetheless be a beautiful thing. In time, I think one can come to appreciate the beauty in tragedy, and not just fictional tragedy. There is such a thing as a beautiful death, and as I say, if my death be inevitable, then at least let it be beautiful. What are the criteria for a death to be beautiful? That is highly subjective, I suppose. As a form of death which is beautiful for one, may not be so beautiful for another, worthy to replicate it. Yet there is one thing which I think can make a death beautiful, at least from my own subjective point of view, and that is to die trying. Often people say that they want to achieve something or die trying. You may want to live forever or die trying. You may want to get rich or die trying. You may want to achieve all your various dreams or die trying. To die having earnestly tried is to die beautifully, and such a death is far more beautiful than any life where one does not try at all. It is better to fail at something great than to succeed at something mediocre. It is better to die trying than to live not trying. That is a death I would consider to be beautiful. Yet I do not think many people will experience such a death. Many people will experience a death having succeeded, in a certain sense, but yet their deaths are unlikely to be beautiful. Most deaths are deaths of decay, and a death of decay cannot truly be beautiful. The beauty of your death will depend on what you died for, what you died trying for, and in many cases the only thing people die trying for is mere survival. Perhaps that is enough. Yet a life lived merely for survival, with no greater purpose, is one which is most certainly meaningless and zombie-like. Survival of the individual, in the long term, is untenable. Survival of even the genome and the species, over a long enough timeline, is likewise untenable. Yet most lives are lived in pursuit of this one aim: to survive, pass on your genes, have some fun along the way, maybe learn a few interesting things or have a few novel experiences, and ultimately, to die. Is there some greater end than merely survival? Perhaps. Yet if survival is a prerequisite for this greater aim, then the point is defeated, as the greater aim becomes in fact lesser than survival. Thus, anything which you feel is your purpose in life, any great goal or ambition which you strive towards and live for, you must ask if it is secondary to survival. No. It may perhaps have been said be the case that for an end to be greater than mere survival, survival itself must be refuted in the pursuit of it. Thus perhaps the great end is not to survive, but instead to die beautifully. Perhaps this is the true purpose of all living things: to die a beautiful death, regardless of the life you have lived. This will grant you eternal meaning, and eternal life justification. A life lived purely for survival is a life that is wasted. A life lived purely in the pursuit of some end, for which survival is a means, is a little different. Only a life where a beautiful death is the goal can truly escape from this. as it is to transcend life itself. This world of life, death, and decay can only be overcome through means of a beautiful death. No other means shall suffice. I often say this at the end of my videos, but this has been a somewhat unusual and yet most interesting subject to cover. I trust it has not been too disquieting, but if it has, know that it is my goal to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Death is a part of life, and fortunately or unfortunately, it is also a fundamental part of reality. Whether we will develop scientific cures for aging or not, we will die eventually. Yet instead of giving in to despair at this, or placing hope into some otherworldly afterlife of paradise, or even of torment, I want to teach you to embrace a beautiful death as your eternal life justification. For only through beauty is life eternally justified. I am glad to have made this video, as death is a subject quite close to all of our hearts, and my great project of the Church of the Machine would not be complete without some commentary on the subject. If you are still curious to learn more about this project, I would encourage you to look around on this channel. I have many more things to show you. Perhaps even take a look at the description of this video, where you can find my Patreon, Discord server, and other social media. I look forward to seeing you there in time. Farewell, and may it forever be unbroken.